Today we explore the advantages and disadvantages of being full-time versus the same advantages and disadvantages of being an agency worker, a freelancer. Having done both, I'd like us to explore the options, and I will let you know what conclusion I come to at the end of the video. Stay tuned to the channel as we explore these options together. Like you. So, shall we start with permanent employment? The advantages thereof are that you are guaranteed remuneration in most instances, whether you are off sick, whether you show up or you don't show up. You have signed a contract that promises to pay you an X amount of money per month. Yes, it is part of the conditions of your employment that you will work an X number of hours, but in some instances, for other reasons, be it family responsibilities, emergency, you being unwell, you find that it's not always possible to honor that obligation. However, your wages will still come through nonetheless, irrespective of whether you worked or not, whether you showed up or not. You do have that assurance of getting paid. The other advantage alongside this is that of annual leave, going away and not even showing up for work and still being paid. It may be slightly different, it may be more, it may be less, depending on your agreed hours, but the point is you are getting paid for not showing up, for being on annual leave, right? The third advantage I would like us to explore is when people fall ill during times of sickness. It could be long sickness, it could be short-term illness where you're off for 1 week or you're off for 3 months. There is guaranteed income that is going to come into your account during that time when you are unwell and recovering and recuperating. And this kind of contract caters also for family emergencies, family responsibilities. It may not be you necessarily that's unwell, but you will have provision made for you for the times when you need some days off or some time off to attend to family matters. Let's not forget the all-important maternity leave, as well as stroke paternity leave. It is part of the job. I think the ladies greatly benefit from this rather than the guys or the people who play the role of a father, who get given a lot less paternity leave as compared to their female counterparts who are entitled to quite a long maternity leave, especially if you are in the National Health Service, the NHS sector. The maternity leave benefits are quite extensive. So these are but a few of some of the advantages of being in this kind of contract, permanent contract, be it with a private employer or an NHS employer. And then comes the thorny aspect, the disadvantages of being permanent. And these, I will start for me by stating the scheduling of hours. There is a specific format of a rota that you're expected to follow, and it gets scheduled out for you, especially in the NHS where I am at the moment. There is a way of rostering as long as you have done 37.5 hours. I must say there is great advantage to where I am, where you can actually self-roster and request exactly what you want to work for that particular month, as long as you cover your requested hours. And I must say, for the majority of the time, that those requests are honored. Let's say 80% of the time, what you self-roster gets honored. So in a way, it's advantageous in that you can choose which days you want to do day shift or you want to do night shift, and which weekends you want to cover. As long as at the end of the day, you've covered perhaps 37.5 hours, you've done 2 weekends, you choose which weekends you want to do, and you've done a mixture of days and nights. That is something that generally gets honored. It's not the case everywhere. Different places work differently, but I can only speak for where I am and how I've seen it work. But minus that, the scheduling issue, it's not in all the instances that you're expected to do a mixture of days and nights. Some people are doing permanent days, some people are doing permanent nights. So along with the scheduling comes the annual leave as to when can you go on leave. The requests are usually accepted. You enter your request in a book, and you cannot just go on annual leave whenever you want to. You may request what you wish, but there are guidelines as to how many people can be away for a particular time from a particular band, from a particular group. We belong to teams, as it were. So perhaps they might just say you can't have more than 3 people or 5 people from the blue team, the band 6s being away at the same time. And the higher the band, the more trickier it gets, because there are fewer of the band 7s, for example, that need to be on rotation all of the time. So there is that restriction, if you want to call it that. For me, it feels like a restriction, especially for people like myself who like to take my holiday in one go, perhaps 6 weeks or so, and come home. It's not a big deal, but it's something that gets looked into in such great detail, and you need to request early. But generally, if you're asking for 2 weeks or so at a time, it is not a big deal at all. You do get what you need, what you ask for, but you need to put it in writing. There are certain guidelines around it. But yeah, there is a bit of a restriction as far as I'm concerned. You cannot just freestyle your way. It's understandable. It's an organization that needs to balance its skills mix at all times and staffing levels. For example, you cannot be given annual leave, and whilst you're away, they're needing to book a very expensive agency to come and cover your shifts. It's poor management of funds, poor management of resources and staff. I mean, generally speaking, I can understand that logic, but for me, it is a downside nonetheless, where there isn't much freedom as to how, when can you go on holiday. Perhaps time now to look at the advantages of working for an agency, being a free agent freelancing, which is something I have done for years prior to this time when I was in the UK before. I loved it. I loved it. I cannot overemphasize it. So let's talk about the advantages of working for an agency. One that comes to mind is the flexibility around one's work schedule. You choose when you want to work. It's entirely up to you. If you decide you want to work Monday to Friday and have weekends off, no one can tell you otherwise. If you choose you want to work night shifts only and not work day shifts, it's your call. You dictate as it best suits you. So that's the beauty of it, the flexibility that comes with being an agent. You are your own boss in essence. If you decide you're going to go away for however long, or you want 3 days off, whenever, it is your call to make. So that for me is the biggest. To date, that is still a big thing for me for working for an agency. Perhaps I should have made this my first point, but that was not even the motivating factor. But in many instances, for many people, it will be reason number one: the pay rates. The pay rates are really, really good, depending on which agency you work for, but generally most agencies will pay you a very good rate compared to being full-time. Some of them even half of what you get per hour from being full-time. So the pay rate is excellent, or the pay rates are usually excellent for many agencies, not just the one. So that in itself is huge incentive for being your own boss, for getting paid well, and deciding when you want to work, deciding when you want to go on holiday. You can schedule your holidays as it suits you, work hard, get paid well, and go away as and when you want to. Saying all these rosy things, they are not without risk. There is always an element of risk with something like this. We'll now go into the disadvantages of doing this kind of work. I think I just said some of the agencies will pay you half what you earn in your full-time job. What I meant was in your full-time job, you may earn even half the hourly rate of what the agency will pay you. Correction. Or perhaps if I were to reword that, they will pay you double, more than double actually most of the time, more than double your hourly rate where you are working full-time. And as I'm saying, it is not without risk. It's got its disadvantages, which we are about to go into in a minute. For me, the most glaring disadvantage is the no work, no pay situation that you can land in. So with agency, needless to say, if you don't show up for work, if you don't get booked, there will be no pay for you. So planning becomes essential. You need to be a rather organized person who can run their affairs even under those conditions. You need to be able to plan around such days. You won't always get work when you want to work. There will be times when you have planned to work and you are not needed. So it becomes imperative that becomes a good planner and a good manager of your finances to manage these sometimes rainy days. But if you plan okay, it should not be a big deal. Disadvantage number 2 is the annual leave pay, whereby if you are employed full-time, you will have some annual leave paid into your account whilst you're away. But if you are with an agency, it could be that when you go away, there's no money. However, agencies have become very smart as well. And when you work, as they pay you this very good rate, there is an amount of money that they take from your hourly rate and they put aside for holiday. So it's never been an issue much that when you're on holiday, you don't get paid. Some agencies will take some money on a regular basis as you work to keep aside for you, and you accumulate, and cumulatively you will collect an amount that you are entitled to. They'll tell you when you go on holiday, you've got an X amount of hours, which entitles you to perhaps 12 days or to 6 days, depending on how much you worked for them. So it's cumulative amount that you're going to accumulate as you work. It's not standard as in your permanent contract where you get told that you are entitled to an X amount of weeks per annum for the time that you're with us. So bear in mind, not all agencies cannot pay you annual leave. You do get paid annual leave depending on which one you work for. So just ask the conditions of your employment when you sign up with these agencies. I did talk about the advantage of being in the NHS or in any government set, in any permanent setup, having your full pay during sickness. If you fall ill, that the full-time employment will pay you. But when you're doing agency, if you fall ill, you are on your own. You will not get paid. And as far as medical bills are concerned, it's slightly different in the UK in that many of the working people, and even if you're not working, you will be entitled to medical care. So it's not an issue that you do not have medical cover or anything, as long as you are contributing to your national health insurance. And even if you're not contributing and you're in the country, you will receive medical care. So as far as not having money to consult or to go to the doctor, that shouldn't be an issue because you are already in the NHS. You will have a GP, you will be admitted to hospital and get treatment even if you are not in full-time employment doing agency work, unless you are wanting private health care for whatever reason. But the NHS is pretty good and you should get all you need from it, if not more than you can in private. So those are the disadvantages I can think of for doing the agency. So in summary, I would just like to say the agency you can only do once you have leave to remain, which is something I have only just recently obtained. So I could not do full-time agency. And when I did it in the past, when I was in the UK the first time, the rules around immigration were very different. There was a lot of laxness around that. So I could do that at the time. But currently it's not something you can do whilst you are on a tier 2 visa, or what we now call a health and care worker visa. You need to remain with your full-time employer. You can do agency on your days off, but you need to remain employed. So please be mindful of the fact that you shouldn't break the conditions of your visa by going to do full-time agency whilst you're on tier 2 visa. This is something you can do at the end of your 5 years once you have been granted indefinite leave to remain. Now you are a free bird and you can soar in the sky and fly and work for whoever you want. And the other advantage of still being on a tier 2 visa and doing agency is that you get to scout around on your days off when you do your overtime, what they refer to here as bank work. You get to scout around and see. It's such a lovely and safe opportunity to scout around for different employers and see which companies or which hospitals or which trusts or which homes you enjoy working at and build those relations and ties. And in the end, those people don't even have to call for an agency to book you, they call you directly. So it's important to establish those relations from the onset whilst you're still flexible and whilst you're working full time, waiting for your leave to remain. So it's a perfect opportunity to build bridges onto which you're going to be walking, if not running, once you get your leave to remain. I think it goes without saying in closing for this video, the call is for you to make which one is best suited for you. But for me, I think my choice is clear. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Don't forget to like this video, to share this video, and to comment below. I look forward to our meaningful engagements. See you on the next one as you remain on the cusp with Daphne. Thank you for tuning in.
Do it like you.